Hey there, y'all. This is Ron again, and welcome to lesson number 2 in my commercial property series. And on this lesson, well, I'll get to this lesson in a minute. Let me first tell you what the last lesson was about, in case you missed it. I talked about why commercial properties, and I think I went into what I'm looking for. And if you missed that one, and where I discussed the advantages and the disadvantages, go to the Gold Club site if you're a Gold Club member, and we've mounted it on there personally so you can play back all of these lessons when I'm through at your discretion. You might want to play back some of them several times. If you're not a Gold Club member, go to ronsgoldclub.com and get yourself registered. Take a look at all the benefits about it, and also find these not only these videos, but a lot of previous lessons that I've done, and you catch up. There's tons of them on there, plus forms and agreements and just everything you need to do business in real estate, both residential and commercial in the United States and Canada. Okay, let me go into the upcoming lessons here. Here's a list of them up on your screen. We're going to talk about 6 ways to buy commercial property with nothing down, and that actually starts with my next lesson, number 3. I'll do a couple of them there, and a couple of them in lesson number 4, and a couple of them in lesson number 5. And then lesson number 6 will be about where to find these deals. I'm actually going to show you how to go on the internet, locate these deals, and the easy identifiers to pull them out. I've got a great example of one that I've taken a look at already that I think is perfect for this lesson. And then we're going to determine how to determine the market value of these properties before you ever even make an offer on them. Fortunately for commercial real estate that is income producing, determining the value is all math, so that's a good thing. We can take a look at the math and adjust it to the marketplace, and with a few numbers we can pretty much determine what the value is, even if the thing needs renovated and so forth. So also we're going to talk about what kind of the commercials are the best deals, what I think you ought to be looking for today, and how are we going to get them financed? What's financing look like out there today, and how would we put together one of these deals, and how are we going to make money from them? What's our exit strategy going to be, assuming we don't want to be a big real estate mogul and we don't have millions of dollars worth of credit line down at our local bank? We've also got some lessons coming up by audio, not video, where I'm interviewing an expert in self-storage, another one in little small land pieces. This guy's done over 7,000 pieces of land, just flipping them and make a ton of money, and another one on apartments. So we got a lot in store for you. All right, let's get going on today's lesson. It's all about what to look for and why. And I think I want to start this lesson off by kind of telling you what I'm looking for anyway, and why, and see if I can't make you understand that what we're trying to accomplish in the commercial property business is a little different than what most people are looking for out there. And what makes it different is that the last thing that I want to be looking at is a property that is in excellent condition, producing good positive cash flow with almost no vacancy, and I'll tell you why. It's very simple. Anytime I buy a property like that, I'm going to have to pay retail price, because if I don't buy it, the market will, and they'll pay retail. You see, my friend, our whole goal here is not to buy all the pretty stuff that needs nothing, that's already been stabilized. Our goal is to find the properties that have a problem, get them to the point to where they get stabilized, so that we can buy it wholesale and sell it retail, or buy it wholesale and refinance and keep it forever but build in equity, or all of the reasons why we buy real estate. We do not pay retail for real estate. We don't pay retail for houses. We don't pay retail for commercial property. Besides, what fun would that be? If you want to go pay retail, you can go pick of the litter. Every property on the market anywhere in the country is a target for you. But why? We're not a REIT. We're not a real estate investment trust. Now, we're forming one of those as I sit here, and that REIT will go pay retail for properties, because the REIT is happy with a small single-digit rate of return, and I would never get that thing public without those properties being in excellent condition. In fact, we lose a lot of potential candidates in that healthcare REIT that we're forming, simply because they get vetted out by the underwriters. Underwriters want absolutely pristine properties, and that's the reason is because that's what they got to sell to their investors. Well, that's not our world. Our world is to find things we like because they got a problem, and then fix that problem. And then if you want to sell it to a REIT or a retail buyer who's looking for the stabilization already in place. That's where you're going to make the biggest money in commercial property, not paying retail for everything. Okay, up on your screen right now, you'll find a list of what I'm looking for in the way of properties with a problem. Number one, they have a large vacancy factor. Anytime a property has a large vacancy factor, it's probably a target. And quite often, it needs renovation attached to that. And those pop right out at you. In fact, up on your screen right now, you'll see a picture of a property that a student of mine, Josh Caldwell, sent to me. Josh lives in Pittsburgh. He's a relatively new student. He's also one of my Platinum Inner Circle members now. And Josh brought me a picture, or sent me a lead on a property that was in Memphis. It's a 200-unit apartment complex, which he found right on the internet, which I'm going to talk to you about here in upcoming lessons. And this is a 200-unit apartment complex, totally vacant, but the asking price of this thing was way less than $1 million. Now, anytime you've got 200 units and you've got an asking price of way less than $1 million, simple math will tell you that that's a very, very inexpensive price to pay per apartment. So you should be able to easily recognize that that's probably something worth looking at. Well, to make a long story short, in fact, I think the asking price was $550,000 on this property. So Todd and I looked at the math, we looked at the pictures, which is all we had, and we went ahead and submitted an offer on this property for full price, $550,000. I mean, do the math. That's about, what, $2,500 per apartment or something like that. And we knew that the rents were low in Memphis, but golly, at $2,500 an apartment, add on some renovation cost, and as you can see, the math looks pretty good. So anyway, we got the offer accepted. Todd put up a $5,000 binder, totally refundable. We had 60 days to do our due diligence. And during that 60 days, the deposit is totally refundable, which you'll find very common in commercial contracts, unlike residential's. Now, I met Josh up in Memphis. We got it under contract, and we actually went to the site and we started visiting it. And that's, of course, where we got our little surprise. What we found was that they looked a whole lot better from the outside than they did from the inside. Up on your screen is a picture of the inside of a couple of apartments. As you can see, they just need a little bit of work there. And frankly, they all need it renovated. Here's another picture of the inside of an apartment. I mean, honestly, these apartments needed so much work, it might have been cheaper to just gut them all and start all over. We couldn't tell that from the outside. It looked very nice. I mean, the fence around this place was worth about $150,000. This place really looked good. The lawn was manicured. So anyway, we got there and we met a contractor there, and we came to the conclusion that, gosh, by the time we bought this property, even at $500,000 or so, the renovation on it would be at least $2 million and probably closer to $3 million on this property. And then by the time we're all in it, we actually would have more money in it than it was worth in excellent condition, because the rents were low in Memphis. We're talking about $425 to $500 per apartment average rent. By the time you take out expenses, you cannot make it work at a $3.5 million price. And we'll come back to analyzing the numbers later. But anyway, back to the point. The point was the fact that the property was totally vacant and a bank foreclosure and needed rehab was what brought me to the property. It didn't work on this one, but it's what excited me to go spend the time to fly to Memphis and take a look at it. And if it didn't need such a big rehab, we could have made it work. So back to I'm looking for properties with total vacancy, or at least a large vacancy. And they need renovation usually, but sometimes not. Sometimes it's just a management problem. And if they're in foreclosure, obviously that pops up as an easy, instant identifier. And then there's all of those properties that are FSBO owned. They're not bank owned. And for all kinds of reasons, sellers get into problems. So look, I either want the property to have a problem or I want the seller to have a problem. If the property has a problem, I can usually fix it with money. If the seller has a problem, we can probably fix that Sometimes it takes money, sometimes it doesn't, but it will take definitely new management and a new point of view. Sellers comes into this deal with all kinds of issues. They have partners that they don't like. They have health problems. They have age problems or just getting too old. Mismanagement problems. I'll show you some examples coming up, some totally mismanagement properties that frankly, if the management was fixed, they wouldn't even be in the situation that they were in. But usually it's a people problem. Sometimes we find people just totally burn out. I mean, they just get tired of it. They're old-time landlords and they're sick of it, and they're mentally poisoned on it, and they just want to get out of it. Those are the situations that I look for, because sometimes I can fix those with seller cooperation and not have to go find capital at banks to fix the problem. Okay, why problem properties? Well, if you look up on your screen, there's a list of why problem properties. Again, we can buy them at wholesale. You see, if we buy the properties at wholesale and then we fix the problem, we've built in our equity. In other words, in commercial property, I can force equity into the property where I can't in residential. In residential, there's only two ways to force equity. One, I can buy it and wait and hope for appreciation, or two, I can buy it and renovate it. Well, number two is kind of what we're talking about here. I want to buy the property and I want to renovate it. Now, renovation may not mean that I necessarily have to go do repairs on it. It may mean that I just need to turn around the management and spend more time fixing that issue than hammering nails on the walls in the building. So I can buy it at wholesale, and I can build in my equity. And in the case of where it's not bank owned, I can work with sellers and create all kinds of neat terms with them. Almost always some kind of seller financing, sometimes long term, sometimes short term. But whenever I can deal with a person and not a bank, it gives me a lot more options to structure the deal to where I can get seller participation for at least some upcoming time frame for several years into the deal. I've done a lot of deals where I literally had the seller stay in the deal until we fix the problem, and then we go either sell the property or refinance it and cash the seller out at that time. So I love as much seller financing as I can get. Okay. Up on your screen, you'll also see another list right now on what to avoid. Avoid properties without a problem. Avoid properties in a war zone. Now, I will tell you that I've done a couple of apartment projects that were in a war zone. They were low-income properties. If you have the grit for that, then that might be something that you want to take a look at. There's advantages to that. In fact, there are government incentives for this low-income property in these poor areas. There probably is special financing in your area for these kind of properties, but I'm going to caution you to take a war zone type property and turn it around. I'm referring to an apartment complex here. It takes a special skill set, and you probably don't want to do that unless you've got somebody working with you that's done that before, because remember, you still are catering to the lower end of the market and all the problems that come along with it. Can you make a lot of money at that? Absolutely, absolutely. But your management better be ironclad. Unrealistic owners who want all cash and retail price. Now, come on, guys. If you're watching this, you know that this is a numbers game. Same as the house business. The majority of the houses that come at us, we can't do a thing with. They want retail price. They want it all their way. They're motivated as long as you close in 5 days and pay all the closing costs and pay full price. The commercial world is no different. There's a whole lot of people out there with properties that they're in love with, that perhaps they've bought and turned around and want retail price. We can't blame them. That's exactly what we intend to do if we're going to sell. Don't get upset when the majority of the properties you look at are a waste of your time. Therefore, we're going to learn how to screen those out quickly. And that's what I'm trying to teach you here with these easy identifiers instead of wasting time on the time wasters. Also, any property with an advertised cap rate of 10%. Cap rate means capitalization rate. I am not covering that in this lesson, but I will in an upcoming lesson. Cap rate is the determining factor to determine market value on most any income producing property all across America. We're going to apply it to all of the deals that we look at after we understand what the heck it means. But just for right now, I will tell you, that anything that's advertised at a 10 cap or below is being sold at retail price or darn close to it. If it has a cap rate, that means it has a net profit. If it has a net profit, that means it has tenants and the income is bigger than the outgo. If the income is bigger than the outgo, I'm not saying it's not necessarily a target, but I'm saying it's probably not one of my better prospects. I just showed you a totally vacant apartment complex. There is no income, therefore there can be no net profit, therefore there can be no cap rate. So my favorite properties are properties without any cap rate, much less one below 10. If it's below 10, that means that it's probably being advertised at retail price. So beware. In fact, you can instantly remove any income producing property, in my opinion, regardless of whether it's office property, retail property, or apartment property, or mobile home park, or any type of property, if it's got an advertised cap rate of less than 10%. That's worthy of you writing down because that'll eliminate a lot of them quickly. All right, next is land with no use. Now, you can't usually look at the computer at properties and see that it has no use, but if one of the things that you don't want to do is buy a piece of land that really has no saturation and sitting in an area where there's nothing going on or nothing going to go on for years to come, and if there's no use for it, it really has no value, and if it has no value, you can't turn it around. Now, I got to tell you, I've got projects that I created value from land that didn't have the value, but I've made some mistakes along that line as well by not taking a hard enough look at the use of the property before we tried to create the value. So we'll get into that later. So to recap, your easy identifiers are large vacancy, no income, poor condition, and also another one is a low asking price per unit or per door or per acre or whatever is applicable. For example, let's say that you've done a little bit of homework and where you live you find out that the average, give or take, sales price per door, as they call it, or per apartment for an apartment complex is, say, $40,000. And here comes one listed on the internet or comes to you from a broker at $18,000 a unit. Well, obviously, that's one you probably ought to take a look at, because if the average is $40,000 and here comes one for half that price, it's time to look. Just like you would a house that's worth $100 and it's advertised for $40. Go look, see what the problem is. Same here. Let's say you got you're buying land, and you know that, let's say you're buying farmland that you intend to convert to some kind of retail or commercial use. And let's say you've done a little bit of homework and you find that retail land in that area is selling for about $10 a foot if they're going to build any kind of retail on it. And here you find this piece of retail land that's already zoned where they're advertising it for $2 a foot. Same thing, better find out why. And of course it applies to every kind of property. Office building, if an office building is selling for $20 a square foot and you know it would cost $100 a square foot to build that office building, you know that here we got a potential bargain, let's go find out why and proceed. Just like I did on that apartment complex in Memphis. It was the asking price per unit that immediately attracted me to it. All right, well, that's about it for now. That's probably more than you're going to absorb in one lesson anyway. So on the next lesson, we're going to get into the 6 ways to buy real estate or commercial real estate with nothing down. I'm going to go through a couple of them. In fact, my 2 favorite ones will be in your next lesson. Now, make sure that you watch for your spam filters, because the only way you can tune into these lessons right now is to get an email from us and then click on the link. So don't let our notice to you get lost in the shuffle. We're going to air one about every 2 days or so. So stay tuned. Next lesson is where we really get into the nuts and bolts, and I'll show you a couple of examples of how you literally can buy commercial property with no money.